online podcast, policy, politics. Here to give you an honest opinion, perspective, and do this by not interviewing guests, but also sharing your own perspective as the listener. To interact with us on our chat room, share our Facebook page.
Well, that's the ever so sexy introduction that we have. That was the voice of Stu. Unfortunately, he's doing important family things like going to some his last born child's concert. Tonight, kind of cool. End of the school year, so he's unable to join. But I got it. The tech's going to be Bush League, so bear with me. Producer Rob is already in the chat room, probably cussing me out because he's like, Toby is Bush League when it comes to tech. But we got a great show tonight. As always, we are brought to you by Enlisted 9 Fight Company. They are active duty owned and operated. They are awesome. Colton Smith, Command Sergeant Major, retired. Dan O'Brien, and then the ever lovely, and the lady boss that runs that show, Megan Smith. She is the brains behind everything. Colton's like the looks, and Dan's the artistic ability. But you can find Enlisted 9 Fight Company, partnered currently with 9 Line Apparel, 9lineapparel.com. Click on collections, Enlisted 9, and you can buy all the great shirts like Kavanaugh's America Likes to Party, or the Texas shirt I'm kind of wearing right now. But 9 Line, America, there you go, America. On tonight's episode, we would like to tell you about how awesome a certain individual is by the name of Chris Lavero. Not everyone's familiar with this fine American, but I am. True story, Chris Lavero has saved my life, not once, but those times. Once from myself and twice from a really bad bottle. Not because I was drinking too much of it, because what I was drinking was bad. And he was like, But we are excited. We already got people in the chat room yelling at Chris. What are you, a celebrity or something? Are you famous? Look at, man, people like Chris Lavero. But anyway, we're not even here to talk to Chris. Chris is just the conduit to talk to our main man, the man of the hour, Jordan Michael Martinez, who hopefully we get here not just with sound but with visuals. He should be populating here shortly. Jordan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me on the show today.
All right. All right, that something isn't working, but we're gonna roll anyway because we can hear you. That's good. And as soon as it clicks over and we stop looking at Chris's ugly mug, although he's got a great flag behind him, we want to do it. But the reason we're talking tonight is because I'm always a fan of everything that Chris is doing. I'm a huge fan of what the veteran community are doing in Hollywood. I pay a very close attention to it. A soldier that I had the pleasure and honor of serving with, a guy by the name of Kyle Hausman Stokes, was instrumental in the founding of Veterans in Film and Television. We deployed together on one of the Iraqi trips, and I did the film Bad Leaders War at the same time. He was doing something else. He went to USC, graduate top of his class for USC film. Guess who else is doing that right now? Jordan Michael Martinez. And we want to talk about that. So you're not just in the 400 series, you're in the master's program, correct?
That's correct.
And you are you're making a big Hollywood movie.
I mean, the project already called The Gatekeeper. It's a military thriller. It takes place actually at the beginning of the Iraq War. That stars Christopher Lavero. Also Jennifer Marshall both in the BME as well. Jennifer Marshall actually used to run the Veterans Film and Television.
She sure did.
A few years ago. So she was also in Stranger Things. She's a Navy veteran, and she's also a military spouse to top it all off, which is also she's married in this narrative to Christopher Libero.
And a pinup for vet. She's pinup for vet alum as well.
Exactly. Yeah, she's awesome.
She's famous.
Amazing actor. She's really a great person. Amazing person. Anyways, yeah, so we just filmed this production. It's about a retiring first sergeant who stalls his retirement against his wife and his platoon's wishes to go on one final deployment. And in through that experience and through his deployment, he pretty much goes against what everyone else, so to speak, suggests that he should just retire. And we kind of really get to see the mistakes of some of what he does overseas and at home. It's a unique story that really needs to be told, and it's written, actually, directed, and it's actually starring actual military veterans. So it's unique in a lot of ways. We had access through the National Cemetery, the West LA National Cemetery. They allowed us to film there. We filmed this where they did American Sniper as well, as far as the Iraqi war sequence, as well as Iron Man, Blue Cloud Movie Ranch. So it's used by major studios and whatnot that's simulated for anything that's in the Middle East. And then we also filmed this in the Mojave Desert, where it's right up on the borderlines of Edwards Air Base. So it looks like an actual military base out there. We constructed ranges, we had tents, we had Humvees, we had a lot of expensive production equipment out there as well. So we've been really fortunate with the entire veteran community as well. It's been super supportive of film, including the VME, American Legion Post 43, and also We Are the Mighty has been supportive in getting the word out about the production and whatnot. So we've been really fortunate to use the circles in the Hollywood area to support this film. It has a really great message behind it as well, and highlights major issues facing the veteran community today.
So I mean, you dropped some pretty big names there. Especially, the facility, the ranch, Blue Ranch, that you guys are doing the stuff at. That's pretty impressive for a school project. So how I've seen on Facebook the call to actions. So you've been able to get this primarily through people's donations, people's individual support, and people believing in this in this project. Some of the coverage that y'all have been getting, We Are the Mighty, to name some of the outlets that are chiming up about this. Jennifer Marshall has a huge platform. Chris has got a platform. Everyone's really kind of getting behind this, donating their time, their efforts, their skills. I saw things on Facebook audio guys and gaffers and stuff trying to volunteer to get in on set and stuff. That's pretty impressive, and it demonstrates the breadth and the width of the effect of what veterans want to influence in Hollywood. How do you feel that's going to be demonstrated with this film, outside of the behind the scenes aspect?
I think it's going to be demonstrated because veterans are in key making up the film. Veterans are they are their own minority group, whether people admit it or not, and they're not exactly in position within the film business, film organization, Hollywood. And the reality is that's kind of unfortunate and bizarre, because the film production industry, it has a lot of similarities actually to the military. Most of us can understand, and we can kind of we get that shoot, move, and communicate is the core, essential, necessary entity in order to be an elite fighting force. That's exactly what you have to do with film production, except you're not actually shooting bullets, you're shooting film. You need to communicate with each other constantly, and you need to move quickly because you have expensive locations, you have a lot of shot coverage. It's time, it's all about time and being all at the same place at the same time and being the best at what you do in each department. And that's very much what I remember as far as being in the military, what it's all about. So I think those skills are intrinsic in actually being successful in the industry. But obviously, it has a major creative twist that goes into also film production in itself as well. But yes, no, I think that it will be something that can show people in regards that veterans can come together and actually compete, which is what I want this to do, with elite filmmakers of the sort. I really wanted this film to be considered by the Academy Award for Student Academy Award. It's a 20-minute film, and the Academy Awards have about 3 winners every year for what films they think are the most elite that come out of the United States. And I want that to be there. So we did our due diligence in working tirelessly and relentlessly to make that happen, because we believe in this project so much, and that it's really engineered in a way to connect with all sorts of veterans, no matter what your beliefs are in regards to philosophical or religious. It really needed to reach upon all sources. So that's really was an intrinsic part of making The Gatekeeper. Whether you are Christian, Muslim, or whatever the sense being, that was really important to me as far as making a film that would touch upon everyone, so to speak.
So, I mean, you just mentioned a couple of things that now I understand, and I can kind of see why you have guys like Chris involved. Chris, no one likes to toot his horn more than me. Like here's a guy that went to Cal, has a pretty decent degree in conflict resolution and peace studies. Here's a guy, Warriors for Peace, the theatrical company. Here's a guy that when we were starting up the Northern Iraqi Army, ICDC turned ING, turned IA, like. He was one of those guys that was able to help bridge those gaps. The veteran community is like, man, we'll eat our own. Like, we're a bunch of like hungry, ravenous, cannibalistic tigers that are happy to eat our own children a lot of times. So, man, it's really nice to hear about a project that, one, is addressing what the real issues we have in the community, and then trying to like kind of bridge the gaps within the community. I hear it all too often. Oh, well, we need to bridge the gap with the civilian world. I'm like, no, we need to mow our grass in our backyard first. And then, we'll move to the front yard, we'll mow that grass, and then we'll let people look at our house. Before we start throwing housewarming parties, with the civilian population, we need to make sure our grass is mowed. We pull some of the weeds out of the front, get our curb appeal up, because man, we can be some jackasses at times. So, but Chris, how did you and Jordan get linked up? So, Jordan, you've partnered up with these super impressive, Jennifer, Chris, um, and reaching out into the community there, VME, film and television, VFT, those guys and gals. Um, how do you think, like, I went out, I guess it was, man, I can't, maybe it's been a year, I bet, since the last time I was out in LA. And I was out there for the HBO launch of Dogs of War, and project that uh, we'd worked on a little bit, and it's like there's this weird kind of thing where, like, it's like Hollywood really wants to be part of the veteran scene, like they dig us, but like there's also, like, I don't know, like, do you think this is going to be like one of those moments where they're like, Dale Dye, Captain Dale Dye is awesome dude, love him to death. Like, he's kind of like, winched or whatever used to come along and kind of like brought a lot of people together and different things. It's kind of said, hey, like, not everyone in this community is scary. There's some good people in there and they have a lot to offer, but like, you're kind of doing it with us, like, Dale Dyes, did it with, Vietnam. He kind of helped bridge the gap, with the understanding, the healing of the baby boomers. But you're like, I don't want to use the word millennial because, like, I don't think that accurately demonstrates our demographic in terms of age grouping. Because I think we're a little, we have, people before that, X, Y, Zs, as well as millennials, all in this process, because technology and everything's moving so fast. Like, do you think, like, this is one of these moments? Because, like, I kind of feel like it is. I kind of feel like this is one of these moments where, like, we're going to take a big step, not to steal, like, some iconic words, but this is a big step for the community in terms of, putting ourselves out there, not just as, like, guys that can shoot guns, but storytellers, thespians, artisans, peacemakers, because typically that word doesn't get used.
No, I think really, you're absolutely right. I do think that there is a change in this film, and that it could possibly spark something that is totally new to the film industry. Because there is this sort of, in my opinion, view that veterans aren't creative, or they're not artists, or this and that, or they're surprised when you're a veteran and this and that. Almost it's a subtle stigmatization. But yes, veterans are absolutely all cut from all different types of cloth, and I think the military is not exactly the most entrepreneurial. They don't really preach entrepreneurial, motivational traits. That's what you have to be as a filmmaker, or as an actor, or as a producer. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to motivate yourself and be able to market yourself in such a way. And that's, I think that those traits, came to me more through USC and whatnot. But yes, no, exactly. I think
Really?
when people, well, yeah, I think being, as far as entrepreneurial wise, I think that those traits are, I don't think I learned too much of that in the military per se.
Oh, that's where I learned it all. That's why I'm an entrepreneur and not in corporate America.
Maybe I'm not choosing my words wisely.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is that the writer, director, and actor veterans is something that's never really been used or seen or identified.
Okay.
Example: Ryan Coogler, great director, that's a wonderful person. It makes sense that he would direct Black Panther. He's African American, got the background. He's from Oakland, right? That makes a lot of sense. You would have a director that does that. Why would you not have the same thing for somebody that's making a military film? You know what I'm saying? It's a niche. It's a specialty. It's that sort of able to connect. And this film, The Gatekeeper, is engineered, and once again, to connect it civilians as well, because we have to connect also, like you said, to the civilian population. That's so intrinsic. So it's very authentic in a way. It has a lot of veteran people behind it, professionals and whatnot. But it also is written and is going to be understandable to someone that's never served in the military, for them to understand that ideology that goes into becoming a soldier, a career soldier, a professional soldier. And I think there is still that disconnect. And you were saying that Dale Dye had made a lot of, connection. He worked with Oliver Stone for Platoon. He was a military technical advisor, also the actor for that. He was
one of the greatest lines in any war movie. He's spoken that. Drop it all in my position. It's been one hell of a war.
No, actually, it is my favorite war movie.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, no, it's solid.
I love Oliver Stone. Yeah, I'm a huge, my favorite for sure. But yeah, exactly. Like what you're saying is what Dale Dye did, I think needs to be done for the post 9/11 veteran community, because we're not just trigger pullers. We're not just production assistants. We're not just coffee getters and these low level kind of ranking film production things. We have the capability of being a dog that can learn new tricks and really be able to tell and own our stories. That's important to the community, I feel. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
There's a lot of young men and women coming out of the military now, and the benefit that they have with iPhones and MacBooks and iMovie, and I remember when I was getting started into film, I was trying to figure out Final Cut Pro, and I was like too cheap to like pay for the class, so I was like Final Cut for Dummies. I probably still have it here in my office somewhere, but like now, we got GoPros. We like all this new camera, like every DSLR puts out top rate video. Mirrorless cameras are getting more affordable, and they're putting out just amazing 4K video. What is your words to someone that feels that they have a little story to tell? Not everyone can go to USC. Not everyone has the chops that you got, my dude. Like, not everyone has what you have, but a lot of people have that passion. And to that kid at Fort Bragg, you were a paratrooper, so you can appreciate that guy in Fayetteville, North Carolina, or that young woman in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that's like, man, I really want to tell a story. Like, what's your words of encouragement for them?
Well, if you want to be a film director, this is the best time in the world to become a film director for many reasons. Number one, the revolution of the internet's the biggest one. You have the capability of making a film and having people see it in festivals. Also, It's easier to make film production these days. Digital revolution has made that available. You can get a camera, for a couple $1,000 that can largely pretty much be, close comparison to the ones that they have in Hollywood. Doing visual effects has never been quite as accessible. People can make films for a lot cheaper now. It's not monopolized by big conglomerate corporations. And then that you can film a medium and release it on the internet and it can go viral. There's all sorts of things now with the internet and digital realm. As far as also streaming, people want to be able to acquire content more. So I think this is a revolution not just for veterans. I think it's a cinematic revolution in our history of humanity, because it's if you had to develop celluloid film, all that other stuff, cut it together, that would cost a lot of friggin' money. So if I were to tell anybody is just go out there and do it. You don't need to go to an expensive institution to learn all these things. That's not necessary. You can learn it from YouTube, learn it from going on other sets. You can learn it from working in Hollywood and then coming out of it. There's so many things that you can do these days with a DSLR or with a cinema camera, and it's just it's really a great time to be alive if you're a filmmaker.
True words weren't spoken. I I spent, this was probably, 5 or 6 years ago. I spent a lot of money, buying some cameras and software and like a big iMac. And I was like, I'm going to make a run at it. And my son made a badass BMX video with his iPhone. And I was like, man, these kids, they got it, dude. Like, they got it now. I remember when we were filming in Iraq, we are trying to like put little mini cams in places and lipstick cameras. Now, like, I was down in Panama a couple weeks ago filming, roosterfish and tuna underwater with a GoPro, and it's like the best video I've ever shot. Like, the thing cost me like $200. The waterproof case costs almost as much as the camera. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah. Well, hey, like we're really excited. So when's the film coming out? Are you wrapped on shooting? Is it a wrap yet, or are you guys still shooting?
Yes, we're doing sound, we're doing editing, have a full length orchestra we're planning on having from USC. We have an Academy Award. We're also the endowed chair from USC going to be like overseeing some of our special effects. We have obviously entire, disposal of USC. I have the post-production facilities and whatnot. So this entire summer, I'm really just
so you're spoiled.
Cut. Yeah. We're a university of spoiled children school, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, no. So it's going to be finessed in such a way for it to be presentable for the Academy Awards. It will be shown in LA in December. That's when we'll have the final five. And hopefully you'll be there. Hopefully everyone who's listening follows the Instagram at the Gatekeeper 2019. Also Facebook, the Gatekeeper. You can find it there. We'd love for you to come along, tag along, post comments, whatever you'd like, ask questions, and hopefully see you at the premiere.
All right. Well, we just shared, the IG and all that information in the Facebook chat. And dude, December, that's right around the corner. Like, and that's why you're driving right now, right? You're like in between meals, going back and forth to the studio to get the work done. No, like, this is exciting. I'm super excited for it. I can't wait to see it. Of course, because Chris, I remember when he said, hey, I think I'm gonna go to LA and start acting. And I've always been excited for it, and like pretty pumped to see where it leads. Chris, how excited are you to be part of this? Well, it is. No, you just touched on something, and Jordan, this is actually this is one of my notes that I wanted to mention. My partner and I started our media company specifically because we were tired of the narrative and we were tired of the perspective that everyone held that the military or the veteran community were one of entitled victims. And we were so frustrated with that myth. You know, I I always tell everyone, like, hey, I'm not a victim, I'm a volunteer. Like, I raise my hand, I sign my name. When someone, thanks me for my service, I usually like smile and say, hey, cool. I got paid and I had the time of my life and I wouldn't change anything. So, like, thanks for paying your taxes. Because, like, I'm not a victim. And, when I look at, the soldiers around me, like the guy that made the sign that is the backdrop to Chris's video right now, and I look at the businesses that have been started, when I look at my friends with their t-shirt companies and, like their different entrepreneurial ventures. And when I look at guys in the corporate world working for large Fortune 500 companies like Dell right here, where I'm at, and just absolutely killing it. Like that's not the story that's being told. And so like when I saw that in the write up, man, it just really like, plucked my little ukulele heart, because I'm smaller. So it's small. I have a big heart because I'm a fat ass. But the no, like that in itself that's a very important message, because too often we're portrayed, when you look at one of the the blockbuster, not blockbuster, one of the big Hollywood movies with Jake Gyllenhaal and what's his name, and it's all about like Toby Maguire, and it's like, here's a guy like losing his mind, like here's the political angle on this, and it all like reverts down to like these guys or gals are damaged goods, like they're not really where they should be. And that's not true. Like, we have guys and gals coming out of the military in Congress. We have guys and gals coming out of the military running big companies. We have guys and gals coming out of the military going to USC, getting masters and making badass films. We have like people in Facebook, in Google, doing like crazy things and changing the world. We have guys building flip-flops and necklaces and wristbands out of like UXO, and feeding entire villages and changing the dynamic of country education, like the guys from Combat Flip-Flops are doing to like Laos and Vietnam and Cambodia. We have guys doing amazing things, but the story is like, yeah, we like to party, and we like to beat our wives, and we like to lose our shit. Like, that's not true. Yeah, man, that guy exists, but he also exists in the real world, like not the civilian world.
Sure.
So I really appreciate it. I wanted to make sure I said that to you.
I appreciate that, yeah. We're all on the same team.
All right. Well, hey, just remind everybody how you served, because you were a paratrooper. So give us a little airborne story.
Sure, yeah. I joined when I was 17 during 2008. I became a paratrooper. I airborne, air assault, went overseas. Eventually, I started going to school. I eventually went into the IMA program and started working for USFJ in Japan. So I did that my last 2 years in service. And I did that while I was actually at USC when I was in the IMA. So I would fly there every summer and work for USFJ out there in Japan. But that was not in an airborne capacity at that point. So yeah, that's pretty much. Pretty much it.
Did it hurt when you had to change berets?
I was fortunate enough not have to wear a beret on that post. I wore my PC.
Wow, there you go. Cool guy.
My beret. FJ post. But yeah, no, it would have definitely crushed my spirit and soul and manhood for sure to have to go to a black beret. But no.
Well, I tell you what, man, we appreciate you taking the time to come on. It's at the Gatekeeper 2019. Check it out. Go to We Are the Mighty. Look up the Gatekeeper. Facebook. Gatekeeper Film 2019. Did I say that right?
Yes.
At the Gate. Yeah. All right, learn more about it. Jordan, appreciate the time. Glad you pulled over. I'm surprised, you haven't been accosted by some of the great law enforcement officers of California. Like wondering what you're doing on the side of the road, but we appreciate you not driving. Thanks for coming on. Chris, hang on for a second. I got a special little thing to deal with you. We have a bone to pick, but Jordan, man, thanks, brother. And we're excited to see the film. We're going to have you back on right before it comes out. Chris Lavero. For the record, anyone watching right now, I want to make sure that everyone knows that Chris Lavero really did save my life. When I said that earlier, it might have sounded like I was being sarcastic, but when I had lost my mind and I was struggling in the transition, Chris Lavero said, "Hey, why don't you come visit me? Check out my couch." Ended up becoming roommates with him. We lived together for more than a minute. You helped me get back into college. You got me back on my feet, and I will never, ever forget that, my dude. So, like, publicly, with our tens of listeners, I love you, man. You also might have stood beside me while I said something I probably shouldn't have said, but appreciate that.
I die for you.
Yeah. So, like, this is a pretty good opportunity for you.
Yeah, well, it's I've been slugging it out in the trenches for almost 10 years.
Been a minute, bud.